Have you ever stopped to wonder why the Archangel Michael and Satan would engage in a cosmic dispute, not over a throne, not over a nation, but over a lifeless body? Yes, a dead body. Specifically, the body of Moses. Jude verse 9 reveals a moment shrouded in mystery. Michael contending with the devil over the body of Moses. This isn't folklore or apocryphal legend. This is scripture. But what was it about Moses' corpse that stirred such supernatural conflict? Was it merely honor? Or did Moses' body carry with it a deeper, more dangerous potential that neither heaven nor hell could ignore? In today's exploration, we'll peel back the layers of this spiritual confrontation and expose the hidden war behind Moses' death. Moses wasn't just a prophet. He was the chosen liberator, the lawgiver, the man who dared to stand between God's wrath and Israel's rebellion. He witnessed plagues shake Egypt, seas split at command, and manna rain from heaven. He was the only man to speak with God face to face, as one speaks to a friend. His bones were not ordinary. They carried the residue of divine encounters and perhaps the fingerprints of future prophecy. But Moses' story didn't end with glory. Near the end of his mission, he faltered. In Numbers 20, God told him to speak to the rock to bring forth water. But Moses, overwhelmed by the people's complaints and driven by his own frustration, struck the rock instead. "Must we bring you water from this rock?" he asked angrily. That small phrase, "we," shifted the glory from God to man. That act of disobedience cost him his place in the promised land. It seems harsh, but Moses, as a leader chosen to reflect God's holiness, bore a greater weight of responsibility. What happened next is recorded with solemn mystery in Deuteronomy 34. Moses died in the land of Moab, and God himself buried him. But to this day, no one knows where his grave is. Think about that. The Creator of heaven and earth personally oversaw Moses' burial and kept the location secret. Why? What was God protecting? And more importantly, what was the enemy after? You see, Satan is a master of deception, a being obsessed with control and corruption. If the location of Moses' body had become known, it could have become an idol, a shrine of false worship, a tool for manipulation. Imagine the Israelites, so prone to idolize even a bronze serpent, having access to the body of the man who parted the sea and brought down commandments written by God himself. It could have birthed a cult, distorted the worship of Yahweh, and poisoned the pure legacy Moses left behind. That's why Michael intervened, not to glorify the body, but to guard its purpose. The archangel wasn't just rebuking Satan, he was fulfilling a divine assignment of protection. He did not bring an accusation, but simply said, "The Lord rebuke you," a phrase of heavenly authority that echoed through spiritual realms. Michael understood that this wasn't about bones, but about the future, influence those bones might hold. Some theologians speculate that Moses' body may play a role in future events, perhaps even in the end times. In Revelation 11, 2 witnesses appear during the tribulation, performing miracles and speaking with authority. Many believe these 2 figures are Elijah and Moses. If that's true, then preserving Moses' body wasn't just about the past, it was about prophetic fulfillment. Satan, always desperate to disrupt God's timeline, may have tried to hijack that destiny by seizing what he thought was only dust. But heaven doesn't take chances with destiny. God buried Moses in secrecy. Michael enforced that secrecy, and Satan was rebuked. This brief verse in Jude reveals a cosmic reality, that the battles of the spiritual realm are often invisible but no less violent, and they extend even beyond death. Moses was God's servant in life, and under divine protection, even in death. So the next time you feel insignificant or forgotten, remember this: if God defends the body of a man long after his mission is complete, how much more will he guard your life while your calling is still unfolding? Stay with us as we dive deeper into the unseen battles that rage around God's chosen and the way his hand moves silently, decisively, and always with purpose. The decision of God to conceal Moses' burial site is not just a historical oddity, it is a deliberate act that opens one of the deepest and most unsettling mysteries in all of Scripture. Why would the sovereign Lord, who holds galaxies in his hand, step into time and personally bury one man, and then ensure that no trace of his tomb would ever be found? This wasn't just divine compassion, it was spiritual strategy. Moses, the great lawgiver, the friend of God, was removed from the reach of human hands and from the grasp of spiritual enemies. Nowhere else in the Bible do we see God conducting a burial. Not for David, not for Abraham, not even for his own son. This makes Moses' burial radically unique. But why the secrecy? Why no memorial? Why no shrine? Because this was no mere burial. This was divine concealment. The absence of Moses' tomb wasn't neglect, it was protection. God wasn't just burying a servant, he was safeguarding a legacy. Jude 9 rips the veil for a moment and lets us glimpse into the invisible realm. There we see Michael, the archangel of warfare and protection, locked in confrontation with Satan himself. And over what? The body of a man, not a throne, not a city, a corpse. This alone should tell us that Moses' remains carried weight beyond human understanding. This was more than bones and dust. This was spiritual territory. The text makes it clear this was no quiet conversation between angels. This was a dispute, heated, intense, cosmic. Satan wanted possession. Michael stood as guardian. And still, even in the heat of that battle, Michael did not invoke his own name or power. He said only, "The Lord rebuke you." That statement wasn't just a dismissal. It was a declaration of authority that shattered the enemy's claim. It reveals a spiritual law. Divine power is not self-declared, it is commissioned by God. And now the question that hangs in the air: what did Satan want with that body? Was it a trophy of conquest, a symbol to twist and manipulate the faith of Israel, or perhaps something deeper? Perhaps Moses' body held a role in future events Satan hoped to derail. Some scholars point to the possibility that Moses is one of the two. Witnesses prophesied in Revelation. If so, then his body would not just be a relic of the past. It would be a vessel for a future mission. And Satan, ever the strategist, may have been trying to interfere with that mission before it could be fulfilled. What we learn here is this: the enemy doesn't just fight you while you're alive. He plots against your legacy, your impact, even your memory. He is after what you represent. Moses embodied covenant, law, intimacy with God, and spiritual authority. If Satan could defile or control that image, he could manipulate generations. But heaven intervened, Michael defended, God concealed, and the purpose of Moses remained untouched. This scene also forces us to reconsider the nature of spiritual warfare. It's not always loud, it's not always visible, but it is real, and it is constant. Even after death, the plans of God are fiercely protected by his heavenly host. Even in the silence of a hidden grave, a war can rage for the future. And here's the most powerful part. If God would go to such lengths to protect the body of one man, what will he not do to guard the destiny of his people today? You are not forgotten. Your story is not abandoned. You are hidden in Christ, shielded, sealed, and watched over by the same power that silenced Satan at Moses' grave. The battle for Moses' body was not just a celestial curiosity. It was a calculated strike by Satan with clear intentions. And understanding those intentions unveils the depth of the enemy's strategy and the brilliance of God's protection. Why would the Prince of Darkness fixate on the corpse of a man whose breath had already left him? What could he possibly gain from dry bones? The truth is darker and more insightful than we might expect. Let's start with the first reason. Satan may have tried to stop Moses from being glorified. When Jesus is transfigured on the mountain in Matthew 17, two figures appear beside him, Elijah and Moses, not as spirits, not as memories, but as radiant beings alive in glory. Moses had made it to the presence of God, but that moment didn't happen in a vacuum. It was foretold, preordained, and therefore targeted. Satan, knowing God's redemptive plan, may have attempted to block Moses from reaching this place of honor. By claiming his body, Satan could try to create legal grounds to oppose God's act of glorification, twisting the law against the very man who received it. The second motive digs deeper into human weakness. Israel, time and again, had shown a dangerous inclination toward idolatry. They made a golden calf within days of leaving Egypt. They turned a bronze serpent into a worship object. Now imagine what they would do with the preserved body of Moses, their lawgiver, miracle worker, deliverer. His remains could become a shrine, a national idol, a symbol of distorted worship. Satan doesn't need to be worshipped directly. He only needs to redirect worship away from God. The body of Moses could have become a counterfeit, center of devotion, one that would fracture the faith of generations. Then comes the third reason, the one that exposes Satan's core identity. In Revelation 12:10, he is called the accuser of the brethren. Satan is a prosecutor at heart. He thrives on pointing to our past, to invalidate our future. Moses, for all his greatness, was not flawless. He killed an Egyptian. He broke the tablets in rage. He disobeyed God in front of the people. These failures were not hidden. They were public, historical, and undeniable. Satan could have used the body as evidence, as if to say, this man was not worthy of divine favor. Look at his sins. Look at his failures. The body becomes a courtroom exhibit in Satan's case against God's mercy. But here's where heaven's wisdom overwhelms the schemes of hell. God didn't argue. He didn't open a theological debate. He simply acted. He buried Moses himself. He removed the evidence. He silenced the accuser not with explanation, but with concealment. And Michael the Archangel did not respond with counter-accusations. He only declared, "The Lord rebuke you." Because when God declares someone redeemed, no enemy has the authority to reverse it. These three motives, blocking Moses' glorification, turning his body into an idol, and using his past for condemnation, reveal the depths of spiritual warfare. Satan's strategies are always layered. He mixes the human and the divine, the visible and the invisible. But in every layer, God is 10 steps ahead. What does this mean for us? It means that even in our failures, God's grace covers us, that even when the enemy seeks to exploit our past, heaven intervenes to protect our destiny. It means that the power of God is not just for the living, but for those whose legacy still echoes in eternity. Satan wanted to desecrate what God had consecrated, but he failed. Moses stood with Jesus on the mountain, not as a condemned man, but as a glorified witness. His story, hidden for a time, was revealed in glory. His body, once fiercely contested, had become irrelevant, because the final word did not belong to the accuser, it belonged to the Redeemer. And so it is with every child of God. When he covers you, no one can uncover you. When he hides you, no enemy can find you. When he calls you worthy, no accusation can stick, not even from Satan himself. The confrontation between Michael and Satan did not unfold as a clash of celestial force, nor as a courtroom debate filled with evidence and defense. It ended with a single, authoritative statement, "The Lord rebuke you." And that was enough. That phrase carried the full weight of heaven's authority. Michael, though an archangel of immense power, did not rely on his own might. He deferred to the authority of the Almighty, and in doing so, he won. This moment unveils a deep and unshakable truth. God's authority needs no theatrics, only recognition. Moses' body was not just a vessel of flesh. It was a symbol of a life that had been sealed by divine purpose. By protecting it, God made a statement, one not only to Satan, but to all generations to follow. My servants are mine, in life and in death. Their destiny, their dignity, and their legacy belong to me alone. Satan may roam, he may accuse, but he cannot touch what God has chosen to preserve. The concealment of Moses' grave was more than an act of privacy. It was an act of war. God was cutting off every opportunity for the enemy to pervert what was sacred. No grave meant no shrine. No shrine meant no idol, and no idol meant no foothold for deception. The lesson: what God hides, he hides for your protection. What he conceals, he often does to guard the purity of purpose. This account, though ancient, isn't just about Moses. It speaks to us right now. It reminds us that the forces of darkness still war against purpose, still whisper accusations, still seek to desecrate what is holy. But it also reminds us of something greater. No scheme of hell can succeed where God has established his will. The first lesson we must take to heart is the seriousness of worship. The Israelites had a long history of confusing objects with the divine: a golden calf, a bronze serpent. Even sacred memories could become traps. Satan's plan was to use something once holy, a body, as bait for idolatry. But God disrupted the plan before it could take root. In our own walk, we must constantly ask, is our faith rooted in God alone, or has it become attached to things, people, or symbols that merely represent him? The second lesson is the power of mercy over failure. Moses was disciplined for his disobedience. He was not allowed to enter the promised land. Yet God still honored him, still protected him, still glorified him. That is grace. That is mercy. You are not disqualified because you fell. You are restored because you are his. Satan may bring up your past, but God is writing your future. And finally, we're reminded that spiritual warfare is not fantasy. It's fact. There are battles we cannot see, struggles that unfold beyond our senses. But like Michael, we are not called to rely on our strength. We are called to stand under the authority of God. Victory is not found in shouting louder than the enemy. It is found in standing firm in the word, in trusting the power behind the phrase, "The Lord rebuke you." So today, no matter what you're facing, accusation, shame, fear, temptation, remember this: your defense is not in how strong you feel. It's in who you belong to. God protected Moses when he could no longer protect himself. He'll do the same for you, because when God covers you, no enemy can expose you. When he defends you, no voice can condemn you. Live with courage, worship in truth, trust in his protection. For the same God who silenced Satan at the grave of Moses walks with you and fights for you even now. If the enemy was bold enough to contend for the body of Moses, a man already laid to rest, how much more will he seek to disrupt the lives of those who still carry out God's purpose on earth? The same adversary who stood before Michael stands before us today, seeking every crack, every moment of weakness, every opportunity to accuse, deceive, or destroy. But just as in the days of Moses, the power of God remains unshakable and his protection unstoppable. You are not immune to spiritual warfare, but you are never alone in it. Satan will whisper lies about your past, remind you of your failures, and try to convince you that you are unworthy of God's love. He will attempt to magnify your shame, your wounds, your doubts. But none of these weapons will prosper when we respond like Michael, not with personal might, but with unwavering trust in divine authority. The Lord rebuke you. That declaration wasn't just for Moses' defense. It's a model for ours. It's a reminder that the battles we face are not meant to be fought with our limited strength, but with God's limitless power. Our role is not to defeat the enemy ourselves, but to stand firm in the one who already has. So when the enemy comes with accusations, respond with truth. When fear arises, answer with faith. When doubt creeps in, cling to the promise that God guards his people with the same care and zeal that he showed for Moses. Let this story embolden your heart. You are not forgotten, you are not defenseless. You are chosen, protected, and covered by the same hand that buried Moses in secret and silenced the accusations of Satan with a single word. That hand is over. Your life now, walk boldly, worship sincerely, rest in the security of his presence. Because no matter how fierce the battle may seem, the victory has already been declared, and it belongs to the Lord. If this message spoke to your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future revelations like this. Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear how this impacted you. And if you know someone who needs encouragement or truth today, share this video with them. Your support helps us continue spreading messages that awaken faith and strengthen souls.